Hey guys, Baduk here, and this will be the last video for a little bit about this shape here, unless of course you ask for more. So otherwise we'll come back to this in the future, but we're going to look at this very powerful move here against the low extension for this Joseki. And it's actually going to show you another reason, more of a technical reason, why this low extension is played less. But just keep in mind that if your opponent does have some sort of fourth line position that you can actually nicely undercut in a sort of an annoying way to make black awkward. Like let's say the position is somehow something like this, then this would definitely be the right choice. First of all, this is not even in the right place anyway to do the stuff that you're going to be worried about as white, because it's here that we're talking about for this example. And if black did play some kind of blocking move, that would be an excellent exchange for white, regardless of whether white adds a move to defend or just plays elsewhere. It's very inefficient here for black. So undercutting is very nice, and that would make it probably more correct than playing high. But anyway, we're going to look at, the way to exploit this shape. So in a previous video, we looked at this invasion, and in this one, we're looking at this one. So first of all, what happens if white just complies? Black's gonna pull back, and first of all, what happens if white just pushes along and tries to kind of scoop out all of our territory there, right? If you just extend and white, let's say, keeps pushing, or keeps pushing, and then, even if white just comes back and defends now, it's gonna be pretty nice for white, because this wall, usually this kind of wall is not gonna be that useful compared to the territory that white got, and your stones are just in a pretty weird direction, with a really huge territory there for white. So, but black has a way to punish white's behavior here. Notice that black has the Hane on the head of 3 stones already. So now that black is going to get a second Hane, or a Hane on the second head of 3 stones, and black is down to 3 liberties, then we're going to be having this double Hane here. And suppose that they cut, right, and take the bait, like that. Then we have this counter Atari. And capturing 3 stones, 4 stones really. This is terrible for white. So, so black double Hanes. And even if white just, compromises, then black plays here to make sure these cannot connect under. And this is all cut off in a horrible way. And it doesn't even seem worth saving these anymore because they're not doing anything. And white still needs to, doesn't really need to, but white definitely wants to play a move here. And black even probably just connects because black doesn't feel too bad about that. And white's not fully alive. There's still a peeping move possible here. And if white connects, that's not a living shape yet. So anyway, very, very bad for white. So going back to the original position then. After this and black pulls back, white should not usually try to do this bumping along. And if white's not planning to take this Hane, then this bump is a little silly. So you're better off omitting that and saving this Hane. So white needs some kind of defense. Double Hane is actually still going to be there. If white just pulls back to make sure there's no double Hane issue, black plays here to block and connect. And white's eye space has already been reduced, as well as their points a little bit, and black is developing well. And any sort of like Hane on the second line later makes white not alive. So it's a pretty sad result for white, and white is not happy. What if white plays Hane? Black's gonna play here still. And white needs to play again, because if white plays away, this Hane is sente, because bop and then bop, right? So white can lose 2 stones or 1 stone. So white has to do some kind of defense. And that's a horribly painful exchange for white. Black then could just tanuki, can just play away regardless of the cutting point here. or play here to put more pressure on white's eye space even. Or in some cases, even just to fix with the tiger's mouth. But even if black ends up just letting this cut happen, this is an amazing exchange for black. So white avoids that by extending out. But look how concentrated white is. The stones are really all in one place, and the number of points is very small, and black already got this. And to make matters even worse, there are actually some working moves on the second line. So there's more than one, but for example, you could peep here. White absolutely has to connect. The liberty fight would be lost by white if black cuts. Even if white starts here, black's cut is capturing white. So white has to connect, and then black can connect under. Ninja tactics, right? So it is really more endgame, to be honest, because like white can wedge, and then black has to come back here. But you can see that black was able to reduce white's territory to almost nothing. And even though white can get an eye on the side with Atari and using the Hane, Atari, Hane, but this is not even technically an eye yet. So although you wouldn't actually go after this to try to kill it in any kind of case like this, but late when the game is filled up more, then we could say it's not alive. But also the points matter, right? Makes white sad, and black also expanded the corner too. Now there's even another move that works, but you really got to ask yourself if it's worth it for you as black, which is actually to play here. And of course white should cut you off. But now you have this jumping over. It's another sort of ninja tactic, right? If white actually blocks, thanks to this move, now this cut is actually uniting black's 3 stones and also winning this liberty fight. So white cannot play this way. So when black attaches across, white has to either like connect it and then optionally cut through here. Or, of course, white could play here. Black Ataris and white needs to connect. Seems like the playing here is bad because it locked white into the decision to play this move at the end. So when black attaches, white can just connect because black definitely cannot play this because white can cut. So black connects back, and now white optionally plays this, right? So anyway, you can see that black has accomplished something, and we can also see that this white doesn't have 2 eyes. So this is a very strong tactic for, you know, trying to kill white, let's say, in a certain situation, again, with more black around, with more danger for white. But you need to understand that there's a very big upfront cost for black points-wise. So just because you can do those things doesn't mean you should. When black makes this initial exchange, you're already paying a monkey jump to white, right? Which will be this reduction move. Even if black is able to prevent the monkey jump before white does it later, that means black had to spend a whole move to prevent the monkey jump, which is also gain for white, right? Like, because if this exchange weren't made, black doesn't have anything to prevent there. So it's a whole move that black loses, or a monkey jump's worth of points that black loses. So so the upfront cost here is actually quite heavy. So don't do that willy-nilly. Okay, so basically white's overconcentrated and unhappy. So what's up with white then? Why is white bad? Well, you know, white is just bad actually. I'll show you one more thing that can happen. So what if white tries to fight? So black cuts, presumably, yeah, usually black would cut. And let's say white extends out. Now this is very interesting because, of course, if you just double Hane now, which this double Hane is something that, if you haven't noticed by now, you should be thinking about whenever white hasn't added something here. So black plays this double Hane. Again, if white takes the bait by playing here and you connect and white captures, then you're going to have the double Atari here and you're going to capture 2 stones. If you capture 2 stones, then these 2 stones become super useless. Because black's whole thing will unite, right? And white just finished investing a whole move here. So white cannot afford to lose these. However, when black plays a double Hane here, white has this Atari and capturing this. That's something that often black wouldn't want. So that's something black needs to be wary of. Of course, even if that happened, black could Atari here and actually push through, and clearly black still got something, but we can do better, in my opinion at least. So at this moment, when white Haned, we cut and white extend. Black has a couple of different options here instead of that trade that we saw. So one simple thing is after Hane, black could just connect. White has to connect under. And now this is actually a Sente move, which is, it looks slow, but if black captures these two stones, then both of these black groups become very safe as well as connected, which also means these two stones become absolutely useless garbage. Because they're not cutting anymore and they're just functionless and they're just a liability. So in this context, white is incentivized to respond to this. And the point of this move is to reduce white's eye space, like prevent white from having this option, for example, when it gets down to the wire for white's safety, right? If you imagine that black was already super safe everywhere, right? Like let's say this group got away and lived somewhere and black is good here too. Like white is not gonna care about those two stones then, because if both sides of black are already alive and this cutting function is not really important anymore, then that means these two stones aren't important anymore. So the timing is key here. So that's why black plays this now. It's all about timing, right? Right now, white is incentivized to save them because of the situation. And in fact, keeping this black group weak makes this white group less weak by relativity, because there's only so much black can do when black's super weak there. Like, for example, like if black starts trying to like hem these two stones in with overstretched, offensive moves, which black could do if they were connected. But in this case, white's just gonna cut through and start killing those. So black is limited in how they can play, which then in turn white benefits from and is safer. And the reverse is true too. So as long as these white are weak, then that makes this group a little bit less weak. If white was super strong, in some way here, then instead of, safe moves, white could play like some capturing method here. Try to capture black somehow. So that's strength relativity. And more specifically to this video, that's this move. So, but you need to understand that in general, if your opponent is just threatening to capture two stones that don't actually matter, it's super, super small, especially in the opening or the early middle game. But here it's super big because of the context. So white saves like this or like this, whatever. Yeah, then black maybe just jumps out in some way. And white needs to make this alive, and white also has to handle this one. So this fight is totally doable for black, and white can't even make two eyes locally. Even if white plays 1, 2, 3, like 1, 2, 3, black can make it a false eye by playing here. So yeah, anyway, going back, one more option black has. Let's say black really wants to play this double hane. Then black could play this move first. So if white actually reacts, let's say something like this, now the double hane is going to work better, because when white plays this Atari, this no longer captures two stones, nor is it even a ladder, because this would put white into Atari. So white can't really play this way. There is pushing and cutting. So white could push here, but there's a few problems with that. One problem with that is, let's say black even just blocks. If white cuts, rather than playing a bad exchange Atari, black can just move out. White then has to shift the focus away from this and onto that area, because white's not alive and starting to get surrounded, right? And eventually black might even get to Atari here, or maybe extend and make a double threat on this stone and this group. And there's going to be a net here after black has a stone here. So by just not touching it and black just calmly moves this way, black may end up just capturing this stone anyway. So that's one problem for white. The other problem is when white starts pushing through, what if black switches to the hane now and then, connect again? and maybe force here, but basically, yeah, now black could even be just jumping here and just not responding in this way, right? That's an empty triangle. So black could even jump. And this push seems a little silly now because it feels like white's attacking themselves over there, right? Black gained a stone here. So white now has to frantically focus on making this alive, and then black's gonna get the next move in this fight after already playing that. So bad for white once again. So in conclusion, you actually don't have to learn all that, right? I showed pretty much all the relevant details I could think of, but you don't have to learn all that, and I recommend you guys to start using these things in games even before your knowledge is complete. Because otherwise it takes you too long to start playing them in games, but your opponent's usually not going to know super well either. Anyway, plays here. When white pushes up, we are going to we're going to push down. Oh yeah. We're going to push down, and then we're going to play this double connection move. White then has to use this forcey move, and then use this peep as a very efficient way to fix this cut. Then go back and fix this area. And yeah, notice that that actually reverted, right, to if this was high and we played the armpit hit move, and white pushes down, and then we push up to create the defects, and then we go back to this move. So when we actually have this low position, and rather than the armpit hit, we do the shoulder hit, right? But now if they push up, it turns it back into like we had a stone here and we're pushing up now, right? But instead we have a stone here and we're pushing down. So white hanes to unite the two sides, and black plays here. So it's actually switched back to the other way, right? There's a little bit of a difference though, which is in the low position, it's actually very hard for white to play this pushing up move, because this time, right, black can actually play this move. So black can play this move to change it back to a variation from this high stone, make it the same. But if black plays here, we get into a position that only comes up from the low position. So when white tries to push up, and this move actually completely separates white. White has no way to connect. So if white tries to hane, we of course block like this, and there's no way for those to unite. There's also no way to make this work, no matter what you do. If black plays here, it's a mistake. White's gonna cut. But if black, in this kind of case, you almost always play in the way that gives you the diagonal stones in a row. If you make sort of a boomerang shape, you're gonna get cut and it's not gonna end well for you. So white's gonna cut and white's gonna capture and end up connected. So rule of thumb for that kind of situation, when white's trying to connect under in a situation where they kind of, you think they shouldn't be able to, do the stones in a row, okay? 3 in a row, 4 in a row. It should be diagonals in a row. If white tries to cut, you simply take, and if white cuts here, you don't take, you just connect this part, because that white stone is still dead, so white's just annihilated here. So don't get tricked into capturing that, right? Just connect here. Yeah. So it doesn't work. So when white attaches under like this, and you block, none of this cutting works at all. So white has to just go back, and then white is just simply bad here. So as you can see, up to here, white's already completely cut, and then all these groups just run, and black's probably pretty happy. So it's very difficult actually for white to even use the pushing option here. So white plays here, and it gets into the variations we just talked about. White's unhappy if they play like this, or like this, or like this, or even like this. Because again, with this one, we have the double hane now. So that's pretty much everything about that situation, and now you have an improved understanding of why this low extension is actually not played as much anymore. But again, if you're undercutting, then go for it. So that's an additional reason to play more of this high move in the opening. And if you play a lot of people who still play the low one, because maybe the people you're playing, they like to feel more like secure with their territory, then you can play this one. If they react with this, then you should already be happy because it's third line for fifth line. And then you just combine it with maybe something like this. If they invade that, it's a light, that stone's light, so you have many things you can do. You just take the corner, and now it's difficult for white to even get this territory because of moves like that. You could even kick, and you could even just give it up with this move, Hane connect, and then play away, and then this all becomes yours. Lots of options with that. Of course, Tanuki is possible too. So expanding to take new area, which is, you know, stuff that white could have gotten as well. It's a much better idea than to be turtley like this and trying to like protect the things that you took. Rather than fixing something, just get a new one instead, right? The price you pay for playing each of these moves is Gote, right? So for the same price of fixing something, why wouldn't you just keep the semi-broken thing and get a whole new thing, and then you have two, right? But if you just spend all that price just to fix the one thing that you have, then you have one fixed thing, but you could have one unfixed thing plus a unbroken thing. So yeah, that's one of the reasons why you would just leave this week like that. This exchange is good for like happy enough for black, regardless of what in the future happens to this stone or this area. You can say this area is like half yours, right? And that half yours is already good enough. Okay, that's kind of another topic, so let's end the video here. But whether they jump or whether you actually get to play this super powerful move, you're gonna be happy. So whenever your opponent plays here and you have the option to get this one, then you can just be happy. Not that you have to though, of course. If it's like, let's say like this, then there might just be other big moves on the board, like approaching a 3-4 point, something like that, right? But yeah, but it wouldn't be too soon to do this like early opening or, late opening, early middle game. Okay, so I'll leave you with that. Hope you enjoyed, and see you guys in the next one.